My name is Tobias Stolz-Zwilling, but I'm going by the name of Toby, and I'm the PR manager for Iron Harvest.
So Toby, you recently announced that this game got delayed. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the decision was behind that?
So, well, the release date for the game was or is still the 1st of September 2020. So the PC version was released on time. And there's also a small joke behind that because the game's name is Iron Harvest 1920 Plus, so 1920, 1st of September. But only works in Europe. However, unfortunately, the console versions for PlayStation and Xbox, they had to be pushed behind into 2021, so in the beginning of next year. The main problem is that the studio is pretty small. So King Art Games in Bremen has currently only 50 people, and unfortunately, with Corona and all the safety measurements that had to be done, the decision was made to push it back. However, of course, with cringing teeth, because I was told that they could have made it if they really would have pushed through. However, the promise they did on Kickstarter was no compromises for console. And since they really wanted to deliver no compromises for console, they said, okay, give us a bit more time and we'll do it properly as promised.
Toby, I think it's really incredible that your team is making a RTS on console. I mean, it's not unheard of to have an RTS on console. There have been a select few, but most studios don't even bother.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it has its problems here and there. Of course, you have to adjust the controls. You have to make it fit for the controller scheme and everything. There are obstacles here and there, but we still believe that this will be a great RTS for console. However, again, as I said, we need our time to really make it as cool as it can get.
Can you talk about some of the inspirations when your team is making Iron Harvest? I mean, obviously, there's the classic RTSs, Warcraft, Starcraft, but also I feel like there's a lot of Company of Heroes in this game as well.
Exactly. So we have there's various inspiration in the game. So first of all, this entire plot and everything started with the artist Jakub Ryszalski, who painted these kind of well, call it Central European landscapes, but where you see the farms and everything and people working on the fields, but in the back you have the giant mechs. So these artworks were the first inspiration at all to just like start in the first place, to start an RTS in the first place. Then the team of King Art Games went to the internet where all the funny information is, and they actually tried to reach out to the RTS community and to find out what kind of games they like or what's the part of RTS they are missing most. And with all the results they got in the end, we have a mixture of several games. One of them is definitely like mechanic-wise Company of Heroes. So think of a squad-based, cover-based combat. That's like the main thing that jumps into your eye when you see Iron Harvest. The next thing is probably a lot of Warcraft 3 because of the strong single-player campaign. That was one of the things people wanted most of the next big RTS, like having a strong RTS, having a strong single-player campaign. And you can also see parts of Dawn of War there, especially the first and the second one. So those three, I'd say, are the biggest gameplay-wise, biggest inspirations for Iron Harvest.
And then I think you guys you guys were really smart, and you did a lot of. There's a steampunk element to this game where you have robots and stuff, but it's not too heavy in the fantasy genre. It's still grounded, and you wanted to keep it kind of realistic. Can you talk a little about the steampunk aspect of the game and how you have robots and stuff in your RTS?
Exactly. There I must jump in because it's called Dieselpunk. That's the thing that the developers are very proud of. They want to call Dieselpunk because the steampunk thing is somewhere located in the 19th century. So people with I don't know, like this, steam machines, and then the Dieselpunk area is pretty much the 20th century from World War One to World War Two, and then you have cyberpunk. That's the next big thing coming in future, and the dieselpunk thing is very, very, very huge machines, oily machines, combined with rural landscapes. That's what Jakub Wyszalski painted back then, and they, King Art Games, took that and brought it into the game. What is interesting, though, that we have in this diesel punk area, we have tradition clashing with, yeah, future, if you want to call it like that, or science. So you have the traditional parts, like the monarchies and tsars, like plot-wise, you have all those traditional thinking in there. But then you have the young guns, the new elements coming with the huge giant mech warriors who want to change something in the course of time. So, and all this combined is the plot of Iron Harvest, kind of. So yeah, so that's the biggest thing in there. But of course, you also see traditional stuff. So you have your, if you want to think of a tank, a regular tank, what you're supposed to see in World War I or World War II, just to make it more diesel punk is probably to give it a very specific, for example, way of moving. So instead of having wheels or whatever, they have this spider feet and stuff like that. So it's a lot of inspiration, a lot of kind of fantasy stuff in there. So it's pretty cool.
So you talk about the combat mechanics in your game. Is it very, as RTSs tend to be, is it very rock, paper, scissors, or is it a little bit different than that?
Definitely, there's a strong rock, paper, scissors system in there. So you have the general anti-infantry, anti-tank, and so ever, anti-mech units, and so on. However, I love to put forward that not necessarily the strongest units win, not necessarily the strongest unit win when you fight against each other, but usually the one with the better position. So what's crucial and essential in the game is positioning and strategic thinking. Because if you can outmaneuver a big mech, for instance, which is extremely powerful but very slow in moving, you can just go and try to get from behind, get the mech from behind and shoot him in the back, because they get special extra damage, like rear attack damage and so on. So stone, paper, scissors, yes. However, you can outmaneuver that system by being creative.
So can you talk about where the idea for this game came from originally?
Mm-hmm. So the original idea for Iron Harvest is coming from this Polish artist called Jakub Wyszalski. I think it was in 2014, 13-ish, somewhere there. It was he was just a common artist who thought of those Central European landscapes where you see the farmers working, and he added those giant mechs in the background to have this collision between traditionalism and those futuristic elements in there. And as far as I get the history right, he was approached by board game designers, and there was a cooperation which resulted in the game Scythe, for the people who are aware of board games. And as I said, that's somewhere in the 2015, 16, somewhere like that. And then the developers from King Art Games approached Jakub as well, asked for the same license, asked him if he can imagine himself seeing this universe in a video game. They quickly decided. They also introduced the idea that they want to make an RTS out of that they feel that might be the best genre for this kind of setting. And that's where they got together. They, as I said, they also reached out to general RTS fans to see what kind of elements they should put inside this universe, like story-driven part and so on. Together with Jakub, they were working on that, but for the game had to think a bit further in several parts of the game, of the universe Jakub created, because we needed more mechs, we needed more lore, we needed more heroes and so on. So he was supporting us with everything. He gave us the basis, and together with him we thought a bit further and then came together to make Iron Harvest.
I guess the last thing I want to say, two other questions I have for you, Toby, is talk about some of the challenges when balancing a game like this.
Oh, that's a huge challenge. I mean, that's that's a challenge or a fight that is ended after years and years of development. So what we did right now before the release was actually releasing an open beta, right? That was running. It was running one month prior to release, and it was extremely important for us to gather metadata. So we also introduced new faction. However, we had to see how the people are reacting, which faction are they using, how the rock paper scissors system works, because we have, of course, QA in the team, and we have the devs and the publisher and everyone trying the game. But still, it's a big difference if 50 pairs of eyes see that or 1,000 pairs of eyes. Actually, the beta was downloaded by over 200,000 people, which is a huge number. So yeah, that was very important, and we gathered a lot of information. It is interesting within the game or within the month of tweaking the numbers in the beginning. Well, we have 3 factions in the game: Saxony, Rusiet, and Polania. And then when we introduced Rusiet, they were completely OP, and everyone was picking only them. Then we tweaked those numbers, and then all of a sudden, Saxony was completely OP. And last week we had the very first ESL tournament running, so there's also multiplayer is very important for the game as well. And we had a ESL esports tournament running, and all the finalists took only Polania, the third one. So it's like, okay, so within we were tweaking all screws and all numbers, and in the end, I think everything should be more or less balanced. But then again, it's open development kind of, right? We are still bug fixing, we're still patching, and of course the balancing is something that, yeah, hopefully we'll find an end at some point. But yeah, we have to see how the people react and how they behave, and react accordingly.
So you mentioned the game is going to be coming out on most platforms. Do you guys plan on having crossplay between PC and console, or PS4 and Xbox?
That is generally a great idea. However, especially in an RTS, I feel like that the PC players would have an unfair advantage over the regular PC player would have an advantage against a regular console player, because not everyone, as far as I know, has a PC has a keyboard and mouse attached to his consoles. However, no, as of now, we have to do small steps. If it comes in future, then great, but currently it's not in there, and currently it's also not on the most important to-do list.
And then, Toby, if people want to support Iron Harvest and download it and find more information, where could they go?
The easiest would be if you go on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, go and find King Art Games. That's the developer, and that's also the tags for the social media platforms. However, if you want to try the game or play it yourself, go on Steam, look for Iron Harvest, and that's where you can download the game and have a lot of fun with, as I said, single-player campaign and a huge multiplayer element.